The Niners need to fire Kyle Shanahan. It brings me no pleasure to say this, even though I've been saying it for years and it's nice to be right. But seriously, it's bleak. Needing to fire your coach and start over, never good, but it's necessary. The Niners have no future with this guy. He's proven that he's not the right coach for the team. They need to fire him. They could fire him tomorrow. They could fire him at the end of the year. They could try to trade him, although I don't think he has trade value at this point. Why do the Niners need to fire this guy? Let me just break it down. Let's start with him as an offensive coordinator, right? Everyone always said, well, he's a genius offensive coach, but being a head coach is a little much for him. Well, is he a genius offensive coordinator? I mean, he's going up against, in this game, the 4th-ranked defense in the league and the 3rd-ranked defense in terms of points allowed. The one weakness that the Cardinals defense, run defense, 2nd to worst run defense in the league in terms of yards per carry. So what does Kyle do? He calls 46 passes and 11 runs. Fire him. He did it last time he faced the Cardinals too. He's this kind of guy. Oh, you expect me to run. Your run defense sucks, so you expect me to run. I'm going to pass. That's not genius. That's stupid. I'm not saying he's a stupid coach, but that's a stupid strategy. Here's what you can do with Kyle Shanahan. After the game, he was asked, why'd you really call 11 runs? He was like, well, the Cardinals put 6 defensive linemen on the field and gave us premier passing looks, so we have to execute. You're not a drop-back passing team. I don't care how many freaking defensive linemen they put on the field. You're a running team. They're a bad run defense. Run the ball. But you don't. What we've learned about Kyle Shanahan is if you put X amount of defensive linemen on the field, he just concedes his identity. He concedes his brand. This is a run first, play action, pass second offense. But if you just put a certain amount of defensive linemen on the field, he's like, damn, I can't run anymore. Even though my running back's averaging 4.5 yards per carry, I can't run anymore. I have to pass. That's genius. Freaking genius. What was it, 8 carries for Elijah Mitchell in this game, 9 carries for him last time he faced the Cardinals? Maybe the Niners would have beaten the Cardinals had they just handed off to their freaking running backs. Kyle Shanahan is not smart. He overthinks things. He's a genius in the sense that he overthinks everything. Oh, they have a terrible run defense. We're going to pass. That's brilliant. Okay, so after the game, he's asked, your team looked really flat and unprepared. Why was that? And when a coach is asked that question after a game, why was your team unprepared? Home game. Cardinals B team. You came out flat like that? What the question is really asking is, why did you do such a bad job, coach? How come you couldn't get your players prepared, coach? And, after a stinker like this, that's a fair question that he needs to answer. And what does he say? I thought we were prepared. I thought we had a great week of practice. I thought we weren't flat. We only lost because we didn't execute. Okay, so what Kyle Shanahan is doing there is saying, I coached fine. Players lost the game. I prepared them. The game plan was sound. They messed up. Fire this guy. Fire this guy. That's not an answer. That's a Chip Kelly answer. Fire this guy. So he blames his players again. Every time he loses, he says, well, it's execution. They got to execute. Guys were open. They got to execute. So you're saying that this team can't execute. Well, Kyle, what is the hallmark? Okay, teams that don't execute, how would you describe teams that don't execute? What is the word for teams that consistently don't execute? Kyle, what's the word for that? I think there's a word for that. They're called bad teams. They're called poorly coached teams. And the issue with this team is that it's not devoid of talent. There's a lot of talent on this team. It's just really poorly coached. Extremely poorly coached. Before the season, they looked at the roster and like, man, it's a Super Bowl roster. We can't afford to play any rookies. It's a Super Bowl roster. They're 3-5 now. About to be 3-6 because they're so poorly coached. So when Kyle Shanahan stands up there after every loss and says, blame the players, they didn't execute, what he's really saying is blame me. The hallmark of my team, the signature of my team is not executing because we're poorly coached and I'm the coach. Fire this guy. Everyone's saying this is the most embarrassing loss of his career. It's the most embarrassing loss since the last home game he had. When he lost here to the Colts, the freaking Colts, that was embarrassing. Every home game is embarrassing for this team. Kyle Shanahan is an embarrassing coach. And people are like, oh, you can't fire Kyle. If he would land on his feet so quickly, let some other loser franchise make the mistake of hiring this guy. And if you think you could trade this dude, who in their right minds is trading anything of value for Kyle Shanahan and his contract? He's making like $10 million a year. Who wants to pay him $10 million to lose? Because that's what he does. Because he's a bad head coach. I've been trying to tell you since 2018. Let me just say, I take a lot of grief from Niner fans. You guys like when I rip certain people, but not when I rip Kyle. At least in the past. In 2018, this dude lost 2 times to the Cardinals. After the second one, I was like, enough is enough. This guy's a bad head coach. I swear people were coming from my head with – people were coming from my head. They wanted me fired. I mean, yeah, losing to Colt McCoy is embarrassing. Losing to Josh Rosen is embarrassing. We did that twice already. We should have seen this years ago. 2019 was a fluke. They couldn't build on it. They beat a bunch of backup quarterbacks to start 8-0. They finished the season 5-3. They lost the Super Bowl. They've been crap ever since. Is that too harsh? It was a fluke. Fire this guy. All right, let's answer some questions. No, hold on. Last thing I wanted to say. So after the game, people are asking Kyle Shanahan, like, what happened on this play and what happened on that play? And can you go the microcosms? Let's talk big picture, Kyle. You haven't earned the right to answer what happened on 3rd and 7. You're 8 games under 500. You need to answer big picture questions. So I let all the writers ask their, perfunctory questions like it was any other game. And then I had my chance. And I said, Kyle, why should your fans feel optimistic about the direction of the franchise? You've lost 5 of 6 and 11 of your last 12 home games. He wasn't prepared for this question. He looked at me. He goes, that's a big question, and it's unnecessary for me to answer it. We just have to win a game. No, Kyle, it's necessary for you to answer it. You know why? Because you need to prove. You need to convince us that you're the right coach for this team because, frankly, we don't think you are. We think you're a fraud. We think you've skated for 5 years and that a lot of other coaches with a different last name or a different face would have gotten fired years ago, but not you. Stand at that podium and make a case for why Jed York shouldn't fire you. Don't look at me like I have no right to ask the question. That's the kind of stuff that Chip Kelly would do. In the midst of a 13-game losing streak, you'd ask him a question like, why are you the right coach for this team? He'd look at me like, I'm Chip Kelly. Uh-huh. I'm Kyle Shanahan. Uh-huh. You know who you are? You're the guy who blew 2 Super Bowls. You. And you're still blaming players for your losses. It's on you, Kyle. You need to explain why you're the right coach for this team because, frankly, I don't think you are.